Hello, my name is Lupita Carrasco, and let's see, I don't exactly know where I should begin because I didn't think about this. But I think that I feel almost like I've come around full circle to a place where I was a year ago, but I'm in a totally different mind space now. My mom has been living with me for 21 years, and she has schizoaffective disorder. My whole childhood was really weird because of it, and I have processed a lot of my reality and the experiences and the things that she put me through as an only child through art always. As like a child, a very small, when I first started drawing, as a teenager, as a young adult, and you know, today, every day, it just helps me to get out all of the really difficult feelings that it's like, what do I do with these emotions? What do I do with this reality that is so insane? A year ago, and it started probably in October, my mom had one of probably the longest manic episode that I had ever experienced. And she would not sleep. She would not sleep. It was just a constant, she was just on all the time. And her bedroom is directly beneath mine, and I would hear her yelling prayers and yelling conversations all night long. And I would wake up and I would be like, whoa, okay, you know, like everybody else is asleep, but of course as a mom, you know, every little thing wakes you up, and I would hear it, and I, you know, sometimes I would wake up and I would start writing stuff down, or just, you know, sit there kind of paralyzed with just not knowing what to do with the emotions that I was feeling, the frustration, the lack of sleep. I, for a lot of years, would hear what you guys hear on the audio, all that's like the soundtrack to my life, is that constant talking. And because my children don't speak Spanish, they don't, like nobody else in the house but me gets to understand what is being said and the madness of it. Sometimes she's speaking about me, sometimes it's about all kinds of random things. But that sound used to paralyze me. When I would hear her talking and I was in the middle of something, I would just clench up and not be able to function well. I couldn't think, I couldn't act. It was like a really bad freeze response. And I guess after all of that not sleeping and everything that she was putting me through and putting our whole family through, I got to a point where I felt like I have to do something about how I'm responding to this. Because for probably 3 or 4 years, I had been getting to the point where my care for her was I felt resentful all the time. I did not feel loving and happy to serve her, to help her. I felt extremely frustrated. I felt victimized. I felt angry, and just so much emotion. And it was just this cycle that kept going around and around, where it was like, these are my daily obligations. I'm doing all of these things. It's never enough. You know, make me this thing. Okay, I'm making you this thing. Why did you make it like that? You know, cooking, or not, you know, just cooking, but like blending all of her food, about 7, you know, meals and snacks a day, because she refused to wear her dentures. And it was just a choice to not wear the dentures. You know, it wasn't like they didn't fit. It was just like, you know, like right now, she's choosing not to flush the toilet. And so every time I walk past her bathroom, somebody has to flush the toilet, and I have to clean that toilet like every day or every other day because of that behavior that she's exhibiting. So I got to this place where I felt like I was drowning, and I felt like I wanted to do something different. And I had a little sketchbook that had 3 different colored pages, like it had tan, gray, and black. And I think it was like the 1st of January. The 1st of January I started on a sketchbook, and the sketch was, it was a picture of her in her hospital room because she had been hospitalized like a week before because of her behavior. She had not been taking her medicine and all kinds of stuff, so she was really sick, and I was able to get her out of the house and get her hospitalized. And they took her over at the center at Centennial, or whatever, the place on the hill, and she was there for a while, but she was flooding her bedroom and talking about radiation everywhere, and like just causing all kinds of problems. There was somebody there with COVID. She kept going in their room. She poured water on them while they were asleep. Then they called me a couple days later and were like, your mom has COVID and we can't keep her in her room, come get her. And I was like, oh, thanks, great, And so I went and got her and brought her back. And, we had already been dealing with not being able to sleep and dealing with all the insanity for months. And now it was even worse because she had COVID, and I had to call on friends, and my friend Donna came over and babysat, like she's a CNA, and I was like, Donna, I need help, please help me. And she came and, babysat through the night, and I had a lot of people that stepped up to, people brought me meals, and people called to check in on me and see if I was okay. And no, I was not okay. But I started drawing and, doing these art pieces. These came out of my sketchbook during that time, and I filled the whole sketchbook of like works associated to what was going on at that time. That first drawing that was in a different sketchbook that was like just a drawing was from the 1st of January, which is my birthday, and I went to go visit her to take her some cake and take her some flowers, and I found her soiled, covered, just covered in poop, and she was trying to take off her clothes, but she was wearing like 4 layers of clothes. So I went in and, I was all dressed up for my birthday, and I got her into the bathroom, and I had some of my children with me, and my husband had to take them home and go get new clothes for her because she didn't have any clothes there, because she would just, get them all wet and put them in the shower. And so I washed her and I cleaned her up, and my husband brought the clothing, and that was my birthday, and it was terrible. And I went home and just felt like everything that I do is nothing. It means nothing. Like nothing means anything to her. It doesn't matter that she's in a home with children that are her grandchildren and her daughter, and she has everything that she could, want, and all these comforts that we try to give her, and she can't even appreciate them. And that was such a, I just had to write it, and I wrote it and I drew it. And it was like, I came to see you, I brought the children, you couldn't appreciate any of it. You couldn't even be present because you're not here, you're elsewhere. And then the next day I started a page of gouache, and gouache paintings. These paintings came from that sketchbook. And every day it's just like a different emotion. And I would sketch out the concept on a sticky pad so that I wouldn't be afraid of a sketchbook, because a lot of the times even a sketchbook is intimidating. You look at it and you're like, I don't want to ruin that. And so I got to the point where I was drawing on sticky notes, because that was what, my ideas were worth, a sticky note. I could afford to ruin a sticky note, and it was great because it allowed me to really just draw whatever, all kinds of crazy things that, it didn't matter what it looked like, it didn't matter that the shape was funky, and that, none of that made any difference. And then moving from the sticky pad to the notebook, every single night after all the kids went to bed, for about an hour, I would give myself to paint something, to draw something, and it felt so good. It was like, and I would post about it on Instagram, and I might write a little bit about it some nights when I had some time. And when I looked back today and started reading some of those things, the documentation of the experiences was pretty incredible. I couldn't believe that I had captured so much. And then when I was like doing this show and trying to write the things that go with it, I was like, I don't know what to say. And it sent Janae like a pile of words. It was like, I write things, you know, in my notes on my phone whenever I had like 5 seconds, you know, it's like, I'm not doing anything right now. I had a thought and I write it down really quick. And so I had this, you know, enormous thing of just fragmented thoughts that I sent to my friend Janae. I was like, I gotta write something about this, because this is the other part of doing art that you have to write about it too. Like, I'm not a writer, but you know, somebody expects me to be. And so you know, she helped me to sew all those words together, like all those thoughts, and in a way that, you know, that she could see. And then of course I would look at it and be like, I would never say that. Like, I would never. And so the way that I write is very much the way that I talk. And I don't know, like it all started coming together, but after I was done with this sketchbook, the last page, I think it was 2 days later, I was like, I really want to express this somewhere. I want to share this. I want to do something that is related to this in a museum, of course. And so I sent Daisy a weird message, and I didn't even know Daisy McGowan, and I sent her a weird message about how, like, hey, can you help me figure out how you do this? Like, I don't know how to do this, and I'd like to pitch a show to a museum. I don't know how it's done. Can you meet with me? And she said, I have just the thing for you. And so she told me about this space, and what she said to me that made all of this possible was, you could put one painting in there and it would be fine. It's a project space. And that concept was so foreign, because when I do a show, I go and I see the space, I see the gallery, I'm looking at the walls, I'm like, how many pieces need to go in here? What do I need to produce? What, you know, what's the quality of the work? This was like an open-ended thing where I could just explore, do whatever the heck I wanted to do, and that had never been presented to me, ever, you know, an opportunity like that. And so I had no idea really what this would look like. I had a weird idea of like what I would do in a museum, and I had all these little drawings on my sticky pads. But this was different, because even though the freedom was there, I didn't have time to get into it because my children were going back to school and all these things are going on. And by the way, I have 7 kids, and only one of them is out of the house. So it's just insanity all the time. And so in the times that I couldn't make any art, I would, you know, type some things on my phone. I would use my my sketchbook over there and just jot down ideas. And then from those ideas, I started that sculpture when I got an opportunity, and of course didn't build it correctly. My friend Frank, who does pottery, who's a potter, he helped me with acquiring like all of my stuff except for the medicine bottles. I did those by myself. But yeah, like I didn't formulate it well or think it through. It was all like super like, I don't know what I'm doing and I don't know what I'm making, and I'm just making this thing. Oh, okay, this is what it is. It's kind of crooked, it's really weird, I don't know, it looks pretty fragile. And of course, like when he pulled it out of the raccoon kiln, it like crumbled. And my husband glued it back together. It was in a million pieces, that one. And the hands, those also broke, but they were held together. And so he set them on a table, and they were sitting on a table for about a week, and then he bumped into it, and they broke. And he was like, she's gonna kill me. And I was like, no, dude, it's totally fine, like not a big deal. And then when we were setting up a show, like the last day that we were here, I think, Mikey was getting ready to put a little sticker inside of that tub with my mom's face and arm and hand. And he said, I need to move these so that I can put some tape in here. And so I sat him on the ground, and my 3-year-old was rolling on the floor and rolled right into the arm, and the arm fell over and broke in half. And I was like, wow, now they're all matching. Now they're all broken. All the pieces are broken. Yay. And, you know, so Mikey glued that back together, and it was great. And, you know, it just, everything in here evolved from experience. This last picture with the phones was, I did it last week, and it was an event that happened last week when my friend Stephanie came to the house to help keep me company so that I could get finished with all the show, odds and ends that I was trying to put together to get here and have everything ready. And she was helping me clean countertops and wash dishes while I was making my mom's breakfast. And my mom stole all the phones. She took my phone, her phone, the house phone, and hid them in 3 different locations. And my son, one of my kids was on a therapy appointment, up in his bedroom, and then he was already late for school. And then we're trying to leave to take him to school, but now nobody can find their phone. And this is something that happens if you come into my house. Don't leave your bags laying around. My mom will take your stuff. And so yeah, that inspired this painting, and her in the doctor's office waiting for her monthly injection, just looking like, hot stuff in the doctor's office, and just cool as a cucumber, and doesn't care what that your stuff is missing, and doesn't care that it's inappropriate, and doesn't care that she's making you late. It doesn't affect her. It affects me. So at the beginning of this project, I got a therapist when I started working on this. I got a therapist because I was like, I'm gonna need therapy. This is not gonna be okay. Because I was ready to dig deep into myself and get all of this stuff out. And this is basically me working through a ton of trauma and making sense of it in the way that I know how to do. This chair right here I did an empty chair therapy session for like a few weeks ago, I think, maybe 3 weeks ago, and wrote this letter to my mother. And I didn't cry when I wrote it, but man, when I read it to that empty chair, it just broke me open. And that was also one of the last pieces that came into the thought process of like, I should add this element in, because all of these things, this is all a part of that story. So I see this as an evolving body of work that I can continue to play with and, work through and express how I need to. And so, yeah, like this would have never happened if Daisy hadn't said, you can just pull one piece in and it'll be cool. So that's all I gotta say. Any questions?
Does anyone have any questions or comments for Lupita about her work?
Is this a self-portrait?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's, I'm assuming, is your mother.
Yes.
And what's the significance of the ice cream cones?
Oh, so this was when she would not wear her dentures, and I was blending all of the meals. And I also needed to take her to go get ice cream constantly, because it's all about like, get me ice cream, take me to get ice cream. It's all about ice cream. Everything that makes me happy is ice cream. And I thought, well, maybe if I just get her ice cream like as much as possible, then it'll be okay. But it's okay for a little bit. Not forever.
You talked about it a little bit, but I'd love to hear more about kind of the incorporation of outside of painting. Like you definitely have you talked about kind of the ceramic pieces, but including more like the physical objects over there, the chair, like kind of your thought process of bringing things away from the two-dimensional plane.
Yeah, so like in my mind, in the museum space, there was a big sculpture of my mother's hair, and like me, like you could walk through these areas that had a lot of symbolism for me, like as my experience growing up. And that doing the bundles, like taking this process here, this situation with all this pile of stuff, this is a fraction of what we go through. And today, when we were cleaning out our guest room for family to stay with us, we found a giant black trash bag filled with more bundles that I didn't process, I didn't deal with, because it was just too much stuff. And that is a tiny little portion. And so I wanted to show just the randomness, and these images over here really, like I took this picture before I unbundled, and then this was the picture after. So as I unbundled these, I set them in the same order so you could see what was in each of these right here on this towel. and then like, you know, just the far away view of this situation, and then getting closer and closer, and like, you know, there's a quesadilla in there, you know, like she took somebody's quesadilla and bundled it, you know, they left their quesadilla on the table, there it goes. And the children, when I incorporate the children too, and I'm like, run into grandma's room and get all the stuff, you know, and so like this is part of their reality too. I don't know, it just, I felt like this story and this reality of all of these objects, the worst part about the bundling is you don't know what's inside these bundles. You never know what's gonna be in there. And it could be anything, it could be your keys, you know? Yeah.
Is that bundling, is that part of this, the disorder that she has?
She does, and you know what? My friend Katie, who also takes care of a parent with schizoaffective disorder or with schizophrenia, and had a father that also suffered from, you know, the same condition, he would bundle things too. And then I heard that sometimes people with Alzheimer's will do that behavior too. So like, I don't know where it comes from, but it's been a part of my life ever since I was a kid. And I really felt it was an important part to all of this. So.
Did your mom make the crochet over there?
She made all the white pieces, and then I made the mess that ties it all together.
Oh, neat.
Yes, I saw her crochet. I was really impressed. She was working with
Such a small thread, always. Very, very small thread, yeah.
Any other questions that you want to ask her about the work at this point?
Can I make a comment?
Yeah.
Peta, as your friend, but also as probably one of your biggest admirers, I cannot help but be in awe of the fact that you are so open and so willing to put your heart on the canvas like you do. Thank you. Please don't stop.
Thanks. Yes. And I've had family, you know, get very offended by me sharing these things, but, you know, they're not supportive in any manner that makes any sense, you know. They don't come visit, and they know where we are, and I've, you know, my family and I have traveled for years back and forth to Mexico and to California, and big long drives that take 28 hours, and it took 28 years for my family to come out to visit, which was just last year. They, you know, now that all the siblings are passing away and there's only 3 sisters left, they finally came out to visit. And, you know, I know that when I was scolded by my family members by one of them for saying things I say and sharing the things that I share, and she said, please don't post any more pictures of my aunt and more videos of my aunt. And I thought, well, I mean, at first I felt like a teenager that was in trouble, and then I thought about it and I was like, this is absurd. I live this. This is my reality. This isn't a choice that anybody gets to make other than me. Like, if you want to take care of my mom, you know, great, I'll help. And something else that was really funny recently is that my 2 oldest daughters took her to Mexico just recently in January or February. Was it at the beginning of February? They flew down to Mexico with her, and it was only supposed to be for like 10 days or something like that. And then my mom decided she wasn't coming back, and she said, well, I'm staying here for 4 months. And then my family freaked out, and everybody started calling me, how are you gonna manage your mom? You need to get her back home. You need to call her and tell her what to do. And I was like, well, I mean, you know, I'm over here, she's over there, I can't control her. If she chooses to stay with you guys, enjoy, you know. But yeah, luckily they were, you know, we managed to, I was really hoping for a little reprieve, but she came back, and so we're where we are now.
Well, I think with the work that's so powerful is the honesty of it, and there's so many areas and ways to connect to it. And like you were talking about your friend who also takes care of parents, and I think even if maybe this experience isn't 100% something someone's going through, there are threads and moments that it's so easy to connect to those because we all have our own like situations that we're dealing with, and I think that honesty really shows through, and it's beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Lupita. The opening is, we're still here for another hour and a half.
Okay.
So please eat our food, talk to Lupita. But thank you all so much for coming.